Vindication, yes! There were so many people that doubted us. There were so many people that said the guard was done. That the first metadata that would come out post Pariah Nexus would see us as a 20% win rate faction. Those fools! This isn't even our final form. So, shall we have a look at some metadata? And the first one is going to make a lot of you laugh. Coming in last place, it is the Emperors. I don't even know if they're second finalists at this point. It is the Space Marines. The Emperors. What? This is proof that if the Imperial Guard was to fail or to disappear, the Imperium would no longer cease. It would no longer would cease to function. Cease to be. But if the Space Marines are bottom of the tier, Space Marines were taken away. No one gives a shit. Danny, your question: what is a Trojan support vehicle? It's an old Forge World unit that still got rules at the beginning of 10th. You used to have the Atlas recovery vehicle and the Trojan support vehicle. The cavalry needs rescuing, indeed. Indeed, the cavalry needs rescuing a little bit. So let's take a look at Space Marines. Let's take a look at overall. So overall, before we dive into Space Marines, we have 838 players here. There were 838 players this weekend. There were 4,221 games played over 17 events. So it was a pretty big weekend. Space Marines coming in bottom. They had 34 players. With 63 games being won out of 174 games being played, with 4 people being able to go what we call X and O or X and 1. What that means is they either won all of their games or they lost one game. And the reason why we always check that sort of 4 and 1 is often, not always, but often that means that they did very well, then got to the end of the tournament and lost the final. But not always. It can happen at any point. But 4-1 is still a very valid thing to look at. And they even won one tournament this weekend, which is pretty impressive. Now, what's interesting is how things have changed in the wake of the balanced data slate. If you had looked at this data but a week ago, you would have had Ironstorm Spearhead as the most played faction with the highest win rate. But this week, Ironstorm Spearhead is one of the least played, and it only had a 30% win rate. So it turns out that Games Workshop genuinely took the Ironstorm Spearhead out behind the chemical sheds and fucking shot it. Jesus Christ. Not ideal, to say the least. Now, what's really interesting here is some of what's going on in some of the... I think, okay, before we move on, I think we all kind of expected that. That might be bad, but it's not unexpected. Games Workshop hit Ironstorm with nerf after nerf after nerf. I think there were like 3 consecutive nerfs that hit them. One of their stratagems got nerfed, and 2 of the very important auras that they were using got nerfed as well. And that just completely took the wind out of its sails. And seems to be that's what's happened across multiple Space Marine chapters as well. Now, what's interesting here is to see where Space Marines have pivoted to. One guy tried to go to Stormlands attachment, but forgot that he was meant to be running Space Wolves, and he did okay. He got a 40% win rate. He won 2, lost 3 games. But it seems like, and a lot of people jumped. We've also seen the death of. We've also seen the death of Firestorm. Remember, this is going to be Pariah Nexus now, where Assault doesn't let you do actions anymore. So Firestorm, Ironstorm, What we're now seeing people switch over to is Vanguard and Gladius. Now, Vanguard Spearhead, it's the tricksy one. You might... It's the tricksy, it's the sneaky beaky detachment. And Vanguard Spearhead has been decent. It's been all right since the beginning of the event. It's waxed and waned a little bit, and it's sometimes been very strongly favoured, and sometimes it's fallen out of favour with Space Marine players. But the reason why Vanguard Spearhead is always, on average, not always, on average, I would say has had about a 40 to 45% win rate, is because if you have some good matchups and you are a good player, then you absolutely can make Vanguard Spearhead dance to your tune. The problem with Vanguard Spearhead is that it's, and we're talking very generally here now, there will be specific things you'll be able to point to which completely contradict what I'm saying here. But by and large, it's not a damage dealing detachment, right? It's got things that, of course, like I said, it can do damage. Don't get the wrong mistake, but it's the sneaky detachment. And often how Vanguard wins is it bamboozles the opponent and it plays very well onto objectives and whatnot. The problem with Vanguard is it does have a bit of an Achilles heel, and that Achilles heel is actually getting punched in the face. Because it's very good, it can be very good at scoring, and if you've not played into it before, it can really throw you off. And if you're a bit hesitant because of it's neutering your shooting a little bit at range, it can be allowed to essentially get out of control. The problem with Vanguard Spearhead is once you've faced it and you realise actually it's not doing any damage to you, it's not doing as much damage to you as you feared. What you can do with Vanguard is what you can do against it is basically like, I'm just going to ram a tank company down your throat. And the Vanguard go, fuck, I can't kill all these tanks. And then it dies. So Vanguard is one of those ones that, you can see here, like 10 players won 22 games out of 50. They overall only had a 44% win rate, but 2 people were able to go 4-1 with it, although no one was able to win the tournament. And that kind of makes sense because at some point the Vanguard is just going to encounter an army which just goes, fuck off, I'm going to kill you. And they can't dance around it. And they get into a straight up fight, and it doesn't go as well for them. Now, again, we're speaking in quite vast generalizations. There will be, of course, a Vanguard build out there that will, cockslap people with its damage output. Of course. But it's I would say, on the whole, it is a tricky faction that requires a bit of finesse, which can make it a little difficult to pilot, and it can have a bit of an Achilles heel if someone just goes absolutely batshit bonkers on it. Just charges it down with pure speed, violence, and aggression. What's interesting for me here, the most interesting thing is one of my predictions has somewhat come true. Not completely, it's somewhat come true. So we've seen, it looks like all the Marines have gone back to, basically said, we don't want our codex anymore, and thrown it away, and they've gone back to using the Gladius task force. Now, Gladius is the detachment that Marines got on their index, and it was by far the most popular detachment for Space Marines at this time. 16 players, 16 times the detail. 25, but they only got 25 wins out of 81 games, which meant they only won 31% of their games, which that looks really, really, really fucking bad. But there is a hint. There is a hint that Gladius is actually a hidden gem, because one guy managed to go fucking well with it, and in fact he did so well with it he won a tournament. I'm not sure which tournament he won. Let's have a little scroll up and see what it was. It wasn't that one. It wasn't that one. It's not. There you go. So it was in Sweden. So a completely normal size GT, 31 players, very normal GT size, 5 rounds. This guy went 5-0 and won the event. So it seems, what I would say is my prediction for Space Marines is going to be that this will probably be the most popular detachment. It's relatively easy to get your head around. You've got combat doctrines. Marines have had that shit for edition after edition. But I also suspect that Gladius is going to be a bit of a thinking man's detachment. Like, I understand the core concepts of my detachment well, but when to play certain chapter tactics is going to be the key to making it work. That's probably going to be a lot of experience involved in that. So I suspect a lot of people are going to go over to it. I think the win rate's going to stay low until the experience starts building up there. But I think we've already seen that it has GT winning potential. Overall, I would say that Space Marines are now an RTT. They are a faction that can win RTTs. They're a faction that, with the right run, can win a local GT. But I think that's few. I think that's occasionally. I think they are an occasional local GT winner. And I think that is reflected in the fact that they have a tournament win this week. But overall, they have a 36% win rate, which is pretty low. Pretty low. Let's have a look at the next faction here. We have had a few super chats that have come in, but let me just say now. So, Black Templars, my, how the mighty has fallen. Previously, a faction that was in contention. Very much could have been an inheritor to the throne of 40k. Now looks like it is struggling. It's floundering. But before everyone decries and lambasts Games Workshop and praise to Sigismund to deliver them, there is a couple of important details here. So we had 16 players with 31 wins of 81 games played, and they had one guy who actually won a tournament. Now, overall, the faction had a 38% win rate. I think that is being artificially depressed, artificially kept down. Firstly, you had one guy who ran Ironstorm Spearhead. Before we go any further, this was one of the most popular detachments for Black Templars. Now it's been completely abandoned. Fair enough. So, if you go back and look over the data, Ironstorm was it was Ironstorm and Ratchet Crusaders neck and neck for like player numbers. Ironstorm often had a better win rate. Now it seems that the Black Templars are the competitive Black Templar players completely sacked off Ironstorm. But that had a 40% win rate. But what's really dragging the Black Templars down is the Gladius Task Force. Now it seems like a lot of the competitive Black Templar players have decided to stick with the faction, but they want to try something else out. And it seems that they've tried out Gladius, and unfortunately it just hasn't gelled well. There's nothing here to indicate, unlike with Space Marines who actually managed to get a tournament win, there's nothing here to indicate that Black Templars like being a Gladius task force. And that kind of makes sense. They're Black Templars, not Ultramarines. What I think is a real cause for hope, though, what I think is actually a cause for celebration amongst the Black Templar community, which might sound odd at this juncture, but bear with me, is that Righteous Crusaders, the Black Templar detachment, is fine. It hasn't changed. We've seen, we've seen it's retained its player numbers. We're still seeing double digits of people running Righteous Crusaders. They've managed to win 42% of their games, and they even won a fucking tournament. Let's have a look at what size tournament they won. Oh shit, mate! I might have gone past it. Let's start again. Keep going. No, they won a major. Black Templars, Righteous Crusaders, Austin, Texas, 118 players over 6 rounds. His mother went 6-0 and won the tournament. So, Black Templar players, what this shows me is if you play your Black Templars as Black Templars, if you embrace the tenets of Sigismund, if you accept any challenge, no matter the odds, you can do well. Righteous Crusaders, the needle hasn't even fucking flickered, man. And so what this kind of shows, what I suspect is we're going to see what happens with Blood Angels happen to Black Templars, where everyone who wants to run Black Templars and everyone who's going to run them good is going to run them in Righteous Crusaders. Now, I want to make something clear here. When I say run Black Templars as Black Templars, we're not talking like full-blown Black Tide or anything like that. There's Black Templars are very, just like any Space Marine faction. They can be very flexible. That they are powerful because they are Space Marines. Space Marines fundamentally are very, you know, tactically adaptable and flexible force. Black Templars often seen as inflexible, but that's more a mentality of stubbornness rather than an inability to use valid and tactics. So what I would say, you know, whether it's a skew list or not, or whether it's a black tide or not, or whether it's a balanced force or whatever the fuck it might be. Point is, however you slice it, someone took Black Templars in the Black Templar detachment and they won a big tournament with it. And all those other people who didn't win tournaments of Black Templars, on average, it was the most successful way to play the Sons of Sigismund. There you go. Like I said, I think you'll see something similar like Black Templars with Blood Angels, where essentially the people that are going to keep playing them are going to be playing it as the Black Templar detachment. There you are. Moving. So that is that the bottom three. That's the bottom two. Bottom three. Oh, that's a sad one. Oh, Raiders of Glass. To all the Orc boys out there. Fuck you know. That is a big old hit. Holy fuck. Yet narrow 682. Could not agree more. Oof. Last week, Orcs 50+% win rate, 56% win rate. There was crumping, smashing, shooting and shouting. Everything in the room. Unstoppable. And now, relatively, there's still some gems in here. But overall, it's not looking good for the... Okay. Relatively, they're much lower down than they were. I think it's not, you know, some people are going to be looking at this and be like, they've got 47% in one of their detachments. Of course. Relatively from where they were, it's a big fall. So they still had very strong player numbers, 52 players. That's the most that we've seen so far. And very well maybe the most of the weekend. Nearly the most of the weekend. So they had the third highest player numbers, but even they were the undisputed most popular faction last week. So, player numbers dropped. They didn't win any tournaments this week. They did have 5 people, so 10% of their players were, under 10% of their players were able to go 4-1. But overall, only a 40% win rate. So we're seeing dozens of players leave the faction, and we are seeing 17% win rate loss. The only good orc is a dead orc. Now, what's digging in a little bit further, Green Tide seems to have been completely kneecapped. What was the second most popular orc faction? Not even the third most played faction detachment. Only had a 43% win rate. No one went better than 3 and 2. Bully Boys, a lot of people clinging on to Bully Boys. And Bully Boys seems to have weathered the storm a bit. But 18 players makes it no longer the most played faction. Most played detachment, I should say. 38 wins. 3 people going 4-1. No tournament wins. Only a 43% win rate. It seems like most Orc players have jumped back onto Warhorde, which was essentially their index attachment. 19 players making it just the most played faction. Someone even managed to go 4-1 with it and have a 41% win rate, but no tournament wins. Dread Mob seems to have flatlined somewhat with having the lowest win rate this time. 7 players. Third most popular detachment. 7 players, 13 wins, 36% win rate. That's bringing it down a little bit. The Big Hunt, the Beast Snaggers had the highest win rate at 47%, but I suspect it might be somewhat of an outlier. But maybe watch this space. Maybe we're moving away from Knobs. We're moving into Beast Snaggers. And then one brave, beautiful son of a bitch took Cult of Speed. My assessment of Orcs is that they're reeling. They are reeling. They're 2 most obvious, and I would actually argue, like, most popular ways of playing the army. Like, Green Tide. it might not be like popular as in you see it everywhere, but it's very popular as in like in the community. If you hear someone's running Green Tide, you go, huh, cool, you give like a nod of respect, right? So Green Tide is very popular, even if it's not run that much. And Bully Boys, you know, everyone fucking loves Mega Knobs. And since the beginning of 10th edition, people have been running knobs and trucks. Like, so Bully Boys and Green Tide, they were the clear fucking like popular factions. They've been kneecapped, they've been handicapped. And Orcs now seem to be scrabbling to try. Those players that haven't jumped ship seem to be scrabbling to try and find something that will work. Bully Boys doesn't seem to be. Bully Boys still has some hope in it. Warhorde and the Big Hunt seem to have some potential. But Green Tide, Dread Mob, and Cult of Speed, they don't seem to have much going for them anymore. Don't seem to have much going for them, which is a big shame because I'm someone who really, I think GW nerfing Green Tide was a mistake. Nerfing Bully Boys absolutely had to happen. Absolutely. Nerfing Green Tide was a big mistake. The reason nerfing Green Tide was a big mistake, 2 or 3 reasons. Firstly, it was a very, very cool detachment, and there wasn't really, outside of the people that complain about everything, there wasn't really any complaints about it. And no one, if people, even if it was super strong, if people get destroyed by Green Tide, no one really minds. Not for a few months anyway, because it's motherfucking Green Tide at the end of the day. It's motherfucking Green Tide. There's certain playstyles that people will accept getting smashed by because of the rule of cool, even if it's for a few months. And Green Tide, I think, was one of those that it could absolutely smash you. But then it had some huge Achilles heels. And for example, if you saw Green Tide play into Death Guard, you basically just saw 180 Orc boys just laminate themselves against an enemy army. So Green Tide, it was strong, but it had some hard counters. Bully Boys was just fundamentally broken, overpowered from the beginning. Bully Boys should have been nerfed. Green Tide should have been left. And if Green Tide had problems, it should have received the Eldar treatment where it is slowly, gradually tuned down. But by removing Bully Boys and Green Tide, you've put Orc players in a kind of difficult, and not giving them anything and not giving them anything else, you've put Orc players in a bit of a funny position. Because do they go back to Warhorde? It's like, fuck's sake, we've only just got away from that. No one wants to, I say no one. People aren't going to want to go back to Warhorde long term because they've already been playing that for 12 months. So Warhorde might be effective, but it could potentially be boring. Dread Mob might be cool, but it's clearly not powerful. The Big Hunt, some people just aesthetically will not go for Beast Snaggers, and Cult of Speed just seems DOA. So the problem with that GW has presented to the Orc players is they either need to go for a shit yet somewhat flavorful faction, or go for a good yet somewhat boring detachment. Time will tell where they'll go, but if I know anything about Orc players, they'll end up going for the shitty interesting one, and the win rate's going to keep going down. I think it'll fluctuate. My prediction with Orcs is it's going to fluctuate. We'll see some heady heights, some terrible lows, and we'll see it fluctuate. Okay, so G-Occult are a faction that I actually am pretty interested in at the moment because they're cool. G-Occult are just a cool faction, whether you like them or not. I'm not saying they're not heretical. I'm not saying they're not a bunch of sneaky traitorous bastards. What I am saying is that they're cool. Now, we had 11 players running G-Occult, which is not a huge amount, but I suspect that is because there's a lot of like negative press around the GSC Codex. A lot of people seem to have written it off already, which I don't think is right because, as Baronessa is saying down in chat, 44% is not bad. Not too bad at all. Like, it's just not top table, 360 no scope, 420 Xbox fuck huge. It's not like meta shattering, but it's a lot. You can be a lot worse than 44%. And there are a few hidden gems. There are a few sort of hints that there might be some more stuff bubbling beneath the surface. So we had 11 players, 25 wins out of 57 games played. Now, the most important thing here is nobody went more than 3-2. So GSC might be a 3-2 faction, but they're not a 4-1 faction, apparently. But what I find most interesting about this is the players are quite well spread out. So there were a lot of people that played Hosts of Ascension, right? Almost half the players went for Hosts of Ascension. And those 5 players were able to get a 44% win rate, which is fine. It's bang on the average for their faction. But then you see we had 2 people go for Xenocreed or Xenocreed Congregation. They were able to, one person went 3 and 2, one person went 2 and 3. And they were able to get a 50% win rate. Outlander Claw seems to have done badly with only a 30% win rate. And then Biosantic Brood Surge, we had one person play that, which is a small sample size, but he was able. They were able to go 2 and 5 for 40% win rate. The interesting one here is Brood Brother Auxiliary. Now it's only one player, so it's an incredibly small sample size. It might not mean much, but that one player did go 3 and 2, and that one player did get a 60% win rate. It's not bad. It's an outlier. But maybe it's an outlier that we need to watch. It would be highly amusing to me if the best way of playing Genestealer Cult was to play them like God. Oh, man. So overall, Genestealer Cult have dropped. They have not made a big splash. They have not shaken the meta up or redefined anything. But they've got, for them, a semi-decent amount of player numbers. They've got a not completely tragic win rate. They're not in the bottom 3 after all. And what I think seems most interesting is that they've got a lot of variety. People are trying lots of different things out. If there's one thing that if there's one way I could sum up Genestealer Cult in one go, it would be that they are flavorful, but they don't seem to be powerful. Time will tell whether that flavor will end up being more important to the community than power. If the flavor is more important, then we might even see a little bit of growth in GSC numbers. If it turns out people really just want to mainline them to kill stuff and to win games, we might see a decrease on the competitive side. But just because we see less people playing them competitively doesn't mean that we don't see as many people playing them casually. Genestealer Cult, it's important to note, they are a tertiary or secondary army for a lot of people. Some people start out with GSC, but there are dedicated GSC players. Most people start off with something else. They then get another army, and then they decide they want something a bit different. Every person that I know who has GSC has them, but doesn't main them. But they have them because of the flavor. And I think Games Workshop might have tapped into that. We'll see. But for me personally, I'm way more interested in GSC being flavorful than them being powerful. They just look fucking cool. Absolutely. Okay, next we have got Tau. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. I don't think this is gonna stay down here. I don't think this is gonna stay down here at all. This 46% win rate is very, very misleading. Tau are on the warpath. We are going to see the 6th sphere expansion, and Tau are going to be meta changing. They're just being very sneaky about it at the moment. So Tau had 43 players, which is a very, very good, healthy number of players. They managed to get 98 wins out of 215 games, which gave them which on the surface gives them only a 46% win rate. But they had 8 players go at least 4-1, and they won 2 tournaments this weekend. Now they won one. Now diving into a little bit further, Monka is starting to clearly become the go-to faction, the go-to detachment. I am not surprised by that in any way, shape, or form. A lot of competitive games of 40k are won and lost in the first 2 turns. I've won many games in 2 turns. I have lost many games in 2 turns. Having a detachment that has everything going on in the first 3 turns is amazing, because often, by the time you get to turn 4, turn 5, it's all over bar the music anyway. Monka had 20 players, almost half the number of players playing Tau's weekend, and that it won a tournament, and they had another additional 4 players go 4-on-1, and it had a 51% win rate. This right here, this is the true state of Tau. Okay, this is the true state of Tau. This is not the true state of Tau, and I see Montcar going up. I see it going up. There are some things that could change this. There are some deployment zones now which are very, very close to each other. And if Tau get rushed down, it could be a bit of an issue. But that works both ways. Tau Montcar is very, very fast maneuvering. If it can rush you down and get in your face turn 1 and unload those breaches into your viable units turn 1, you're going to be the one getting diddled by the short deployment, by the short no man's land. So Tau saying like, oh, Tau want a back gun line. No. It's just kind of a like, fuck it out, who's going to win the roll-off? Kind of thing. Now, we've also seen Retaliation card do well this week. 11 players, so a lot of people really want those battle suits to do some work. They won 22 out of 52 games. They even won 1 tournament, but overall had a 42% win rate. Retaliation Cadre, if it's high risk, high reward. It seems like if you get the perfect run, you can win a tournament with it. But 60% of the time, it does not work every time. So overall, Retaliation Cadre, not bad, but it's just, do you like to live dangerously? Austin Powers style. Caillon, it's interesting to see Caillon still being played. To me, Montcar just seems like clearly the superior detachment, especially with lethal hits. I think Caillon does like, or Caillon does like, or Caillon, or how we say it. Caillon, is it sustained hits on Caillon? Anyway, it's crazy to me that people are still running it because, like I said, games are often won in the first 2 turns rather than the last 2 turns or last 3 turns. But I guess it's less susceptible to being cagey, to the enemy being cagey. Crew Hunting Pack. So it turns out that Crew Jail was a flash in the pan. I'm not surprised. It might be back on top. It might have just been fluctuating this week. It's like, it's good until it just gets fucking annihilated. I mean, oh, I don't know, man. Imagine trying to box people in with like 80 fucking guardsmen. Armed crew better than guardsmen. Why are they at 18% win rate? Beef. Crew Jail. If there was any time for that result to come out, it was this weekend, wasn't it, boys? After yesterday's video. Anyway, I don't think, joking aside, I don't think Crew Jail's completely dead. I imagine that. I think it's probably going to be a bad weekend because I think last week it was doing great, wasn't it? Sometimes the cards just don't fall the way you need it to. Sometimes you get bad matchups. Sometimes you play an army you're not familiar with. It's had a shit one this week. It might continue to have a shit one, but that's in doubt. That's in doubt. That's in doubt. What's not in doubt is that I expect Montcar to, for the first couple of months of the Codex being out or however long it's been out, Tau players were experimenting a lot. Now they're coalescing, and they're coalescing around Montcar. We then had over here we had Deathwatch. My God, sir. My God, it's who would have thought that Deathwatch were not only not in the bottom 3, they're not even in the bottom fucking 5. Deathwatch being out Tau. Who would have thought? Now, apparently, this entire win rate, and I haven't checked myself, and it's going off what people are saying. This entire win rate is being propped up by one guy who seemed to completely, basically dunk on all of his teammates, all of his competitors. Apparently, this win rate is somewhat artificially propped up, and there's like one person that went 4-1, and everyone else didn't do that well. So one person went 4-1. So if you take him out, you had 4 players who had 9 wins between them. So each player basically went 2-3, with one guy going 3-2. But hey, maybe Deathwatch kill teams going down to 200 points. Maybe they turn the franchise around. Who knows? The Deathwatch win rate, as we said before, it fluctuates so much because of the low player count. Would not be surprised if Deathwatch is 20% next week. The week after, they're up like 60%. It's It's interesting. It's interesting there were 5 players though, but I don't. Deathwatch to me, I've not seen anything that apart from those points changes which they got. I've not seen anything that seems to indicate they're going to suddenly start doing really well. But one to watch, always one to watch. Death Guard. So Death Guard had a bit of an interesting weekend. They sort of just chilled. Very sort of normal weekend for the Death Guard, it seems. 37 players, very respectable player numbers. 84 wins, very respectable number of just raw wins. 180 out of 185 games, giving them a 45% win rate. 45% is right in the Goldilocks zone. It's not great, not terrible. It's just where they want to be. 4 players, so over 10% of their players went 4-1. One motherfucker won a tournament. Death Guard just seemed to be business as usual. There's been all these changes up and down. Apparently, PBC's got absolutely nerfed into the ground. Everyone say Death Guard were going to be in the toilet, and it seems like that's actually what that. It seems Death Guard are in the toilet, but it seems they quite like being there. My suspicion is this: the triple PBC was dead already. It just didn't realize it. As someone who's played quite a bit of Death Guard and played into a lot of Death Guard, the moment I saw someone running triple PBC with Morty, I was like, I know how to beat this. Not a problem whatsoever. And the moment I saw someone running something that wasn't that, I was like, okay, now I could be in trouble. I think triple PBC and Morty was just such an expensive combo that essentially what Death Guard players might find is that by being forced not to run it anymore, they might open up a whole load more points and open up a whole lot more opportunities. We will see. As Steel Storm says on Twitch chat, Death Guard players are very dedicated. Death Guard players can handle every change, and I think that is they have a lot of units to draw upon, a lot of characters. Which if you take a Plague Wind unit and add a Tallyman to it, it's going to be completely different if you take a Plague Wind unit and you add the guy that gives them strike first to it. You can have a Plague Wind unit, 2 Plague Wind units side by side, and one is completely dedicated to combat and one's completely dedicated to shooting. They've got very flexible units. They've got lots of different characters, lots of different ways to pivot. I think Death Guard are rolling with the punches. And I think that's reflected in the fact that all of these changes have happened around them. Some of them have happened to them. And yet the needle hasn't even fucking moved. They're just chugging along, business as usual. There are some interesting takeaways with Imperial Knights. Firstly, seem to have had a bit of a surge in player numbers. 25 players with Imperial Knights is good. It's not like a massive surge, but it's up a bit. And the fact that we've also had 3, they won 58 out of 125 games. 3 players went 4-1. Well, 2 players went 4-1, and 1 person actually won a tournament with them with a 46% win rate. It seems that the Imperial Knights have had a bit of a shot in the arm with the changes, but we've not seen them suddenly shoot up to like 50-60% win rate. I guess at the end of the day, they've got some good mobility. That mobility movement wins games. That mobility should give them a big boost. But I guess fundamentally, sometimes big knights they can sometimes die easier than expected. My take on Imperial Knights is we've not seen the end of it yet. I suspect that player numbers will continue to rise. I suspect that people doing well at tournaments with them will continue to rise, but it might take a little while before the win rate starts to really tick up, because they can be a factor which if you go 2 balls to the wall with them, you get picked up in a turn. I think with Imperial Knights, the trick is going to be know when to step out, when to step over. That's where it's going to be. And if you misjudge it and you step out too early, bad. But if you step out at the right time, could be very, very dominating. There is another factor that might be limiting their effectiveness of stepping over ruins. It's all well and good being able to step over a ruin, but what if someone movement blocks you? All it takes is for a basic bitch unit to just line up on one side of the wall, and you can't place your base down, and you can't step over them, right? So maybe stepping over ruins is nice, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe it can be countered by smart movement. Maybe movement wins games, but knights still aren't the king of that. One to watch. They've certainly not got worse from the update. Their win rates haven't gone down. Next, we've got Eldar, which... Eldar are in a really interesting spot. Very high player numbers. Still. There's a lot of people still going hard with the Eldar. They won 117 games out of 248 games played. 8 people went 4-1, but no one won a tournament. 47% win rate is nothing to turn your nose up at. Eldar didn't, correct me if I'm wrong here, chat, but Eldar didn't receive a huge amount of nerfs or changes with the balanced data slate. I have to admit, I tend to gloss over the fucking 9 fears these days. I suspect that Eldar are now, did they benefit from the mortal wound changes? Perhaps something there like death wounds, mortal wounds. They might have benefited from something there. My suspicion is that Eldar are a faction that you can collect and you can take to a tournament, and you're going to go 4-1. You're going to go 4-1. You're going to relatively easily go 3-2 or 4-1. But I suspect they no longer have the sting in the tail to go 5-0. But here's the thing. A lot of people are happy, very, very happy, and should be, with going to a tournament and pretty much just walking away with a positive win-loss ratio every single time. And Eldar are a faction where it's like, okay, I might not win the fucking tournament, but I can earn myself some goddamn victory chicken if I come away with 3-2, 4-1 every single fucking time. They're not at the top of the meta. They're not at the bottom of the meta. They're still phenomenally powerful, and you can take them and just run them like a comfy pair of slippers. Next item, Night Fears should be a 25% win rate faction. Oh man, chance to be a fine thing. Chance to be a fine thing, that's for sure. Francois has put this in a very, very succinct way. Eldar feels like an army that will not win a tournament, but if you don't have a plan for dealing with them, you won't either. Great way of putting it. Great way of putting it. Very, very eloquent. Leagues of Votann. We've seen a bit of a hit with Leagues of Votann. Like, it doesn't seem... I don't know what it is. Dwindling player numbers. I swear, I could be wrong here, but 16 players in a weekend where we had 838 players. 16 Votann players. It seems low. I'm just going off gut instinct. But it seems low. It seems like... Yeah, and the rest of it, like 36 wins out of 76 games, give them a 47% win rate. Some motherfucker even managed to go 4-1. Doesn't seem like there's anything there to say that they're bad, but it just seems like the player numbers have dwindled this week. It might be a one-off. The other thing that it might be is just fatigue, man. I mean, Votann have basically had the same competitive list since the beginning of 10th edition. A couple of unit Terminator guys, 3 to 4 Sagittars, with little 5-man squads in. Some of those squads will be Hearthkin. Some of those squads, or Hearthguard, is what they're called. Some of those squads are going to be Berserkers. Might throw Hecaton in there if feeling brave. Like, might delete it later. Like, it just seems like Votann basically have the same fucking army. And that's all they're... And maybe people are getting bored of it. Leagues of Votann, in a funny sort of way, are kind of the opposite of G-Stiller Cult, where G-Stiller Cult have got loads and loads of flavour, but, but people don't seem to think they're that powerful. Votann seem perfectly playable, perfectly powerful, but the numbers don't seem to reflect people being interested in them. At the end of the day, this is just a theory. A film theory! Okay, I'll stop. It's just a theory. But they've had the same fucking units with basically the same fucking list for the last 2 or 3 years. How long has Votann been out now? Probably coming up to 2 years of Votann coming out without a single new unit being released, and they didn't start with all that many. I wouldn't be surprised. And also, I don't know how many people main Votann. They might be kind of like GSC, where they're often a lot of people's like second or third army, or third or fourth army. Grey Knight 1. I agree, it's like both are happening. They are boring army right now, and they are technically more expensive because they're all new units with way, way less variation than all the other Codex armies. Hot take for Votann is they are totally playable, but the numbers this week seem to have gone down. This may be a one-off. It may be a sign of faction fatigue. Let us watch the developments as they come in. Necrons. Okay, I'm just going to be real with you. This week for Necrons, I am flabbergasted. I am astounded. I am confounded. I am confounded. That might be the same word with me saying it wrong one way or the other. I am bamboozled. You see, your man MG here made a little bit of a take last week. And that take was that Hypocrite Legion was dead, and that Canoptic Court had won the struggle for the Necron dynasties. Turns out that was a lot of shit, because out of 57 players running Necrons, 36 of them ran Hypocrite Legion. That is more than everyone else combined. Out of all the other detachments, they didn't even get close, man. Like 36 people running Hypercrypt, 21 people ran anything else. Maybe that's what it comes. Maybe that's what it comes down to. It could very well be down to Pariah Nexus and how those missions work. So Hypercrypt Legion had 36 players. They won 96 out of 180 games, and they had 5 people go 4-1, and overall they had a very, very, very strong 53% win rate. But no one won a tournament. And in fact, Canoptic Court, which had less than a third, almost a quarter of the players, actually ended up getting 2 people going 4-1, which proportionally is actually a higher percentage. Like 20% of the players who ran Canoptic Court managed to do very well with them. And one guy went 4-1, and the other guy actually went 5-0 and won the tournament. So on the surface, Hypercrypt Legion has the better win rate, but is struggling to get the tournament wins. Canoptic Court has a similar win rate, but is way, way, way less powerful, but does have that ability to still clinch the tournament. Awakened Dynasty is completely fucking bottomed out. If anyone made a bet based on me saying Awakened Dynasty was going to start doing well, I apologize for your now financial destitution. You can submit my anus to the bailiffs as they come around to collect all your possessions. Because Awakened Legion, which I was like, it's on the up and up. It's on the up and up. Nah, 35% win rate, mate. It's rare. You know what? I've made a lot of right predictions, but I will admit when I'm wrong. And I was fucking wrong about Necrons, man. But I have to say, I'm a little sad about being wrong about Necrons. I am fucking sick of Hypercrypt. Ugh. It's so smegging boring. It's so fucking predictable. And that's someone that played fucking Hypercrypt back to back at a tournament. That's someone that only ever seems to encounter Hypercrypt. It was so nice thinking that Canoptic Court was gonna make a comeback. It was so nice to get to play something other than teleporty fucking whack-a-mole bullshit. And now it's just like, it's not that Hypercrypt Legion in and of itself is boring. It's that I have played against Hypercrypt Legion so much that I now personally find it very, very boring. And I just was kind of hoping, I was really hoping for a mix-up in the Necron meta. And that does not seem to have happened. I would have loved to have seen Awakened Dynasty. I would have loved to have seen a bit of a Silver Tide making a comeback. That would have been great. But sadly, that's not possible. Sadly, that was not to be. Necrons are still a phenomenally to sum this all up, Necrons are still a phenomenally popular faction with a very, very respectable win rate, with the ability to still win tournaments. They're definitely not the boogeyman that they once were, but they are a faction that absolutely deserves your respect. And they might have taken a few nerfs, you know, not in this balance day, it's late and stuff, but they might have taken a few nerfs generally since they came out. But they're still here, and they're still very much something you need to take into account when going to a tournament. If you don't have an answer for Necrons, if you can't kill a Katana turn, you go back and rewrite your list. All right, where are we up to? Have we done the bottom 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's do the bottom 12. Let's take a look at Dark Angels. We're going to do Dark Angels, then Super Chats, and then I need a comfort break. So, Dark Angels. See a bit of a resurgence, man. Very, very, very cool. Happy to see it, man, because it was kind of tragic seeing the fall of the Dark Angels. Come on. Give me that one. Come on, buddy. You got to give me that one. Dad joke Mordian. 29 players is a phenomenal resurgence. Really healthy return to form for the Dark Angels. They may still be in the bottom half of factions, but it's a far cry from being bottom of the bucket. You know, and it's 29 players, 70 wins out of 148 games, 5 people going, 4 people going 4-1, 1 person actually winning a tournament, 47% win rate, right in that Goldilocks zone. Nice. Now we've seen the complete and utter collapse of Iron. Okay, we've seen a complete and utter collapse of the Ironstorm player numbers, but we have not seen a complete and utter collapse of the Ironstorm performance. Whilst only about 10% of Dark Angel players took Ironstorm, they did manage to win 8 out of 15 games. 1 person went 4-1, and they did a 53% win rate. So it seems like Dark Angel did not get the memo on Ironstorm being shit. It very well may come down to the fact that Dark Angels have additional rules which can help boost up the Ironstorm. I mean, most people who were taking Ironstorm were running it as either Dark Angels or Black Templars anyway, and it was propping the faction up. So whilst Ironstorm got a bit of a nerf, Dark Angels didn't. We've got Firestorm, Assault Force, Firestorm Assault Force, you know, I'm just going to lump all these together. Firestorm Assault Force, Vanguard, Spearhead, Inner Circle Task Force, Unforgiven Task Force, Company of Hunters, and Siege Force. None of these have really moved all that much. The big thing to note is it's just nice to see that all of the detachments saw some play. Some mad bastard took Anvil Siege Force fucking Dark Angels, and he still went 2 and 3, which is very respectable. Company of Hunters, 1 guy took that. Unforgiven Task Force, someone took that. Inner Circle, 4 people took it, and probably wish they hadn't with a 23% win rate. So the number one thing to take away is that Dark Angels, they're healing, and people are starting to be more interested in the faction once again. But if you want to actually have some power in Dark Angels, it seems to be like you need to go Gladius. Now, what's really fascinating here is, and I don't know what Dark Angels do differently to make Gladius sing so well, but if we look at Black Templars, like 6 people went Gladius and absolutely got their shit pushed in, 31%. Look at Space Marines, like 16 people took Gladius and got their shit pushed in. And then we look over at Dark Angels, and the vast, but yeah, a lot of people, it was by a long way, it was the most popular detachment. It got a 57% win rate, and it managed to go, you know, 4 people went 4, and almost a third of the players went 4-1 or better with it, and 1 guy actually won a tournament. I have a theory. It's probably very easy to poke holes in this theory. I think that a lot of the more cutthroat, experienced Space Marine players had already moved away from Space Marines and had moved to a specialist detachment, a specialist faction, like Blood Angels and Dark Angels and Space Wolves and so on and so forth. Now, I think that a lot of the Black Templar players will still just them as Black Templars. I think a lot of the Space Wolf players were just running them as Thunderwolf Cavalry. And I think a lot of the Blood Angels was running Sons of Sigismund. But a lot of the people that didn't want to, you know, a lot of people that weren't Blood Angel players, that weren't Space Wolf players, that weren't Black Temple players, a lot of people that just wanted to run Space Marines but better went over to Dark Angels and remaining them competitively. And as a result, when you see this, I think this explains why Dark Angels in Gladius have done better than regular Space Marines in Gladius. Because that's where a lot of the cutthroat players already were. And so they've just gone, right, well, Dark Angels, Gladius, that's where we're going. Could be complete bollocks. And I hope, I don't know if I explain myself particularly well there, but I feel like, but I hope that makes sense. And I said, long story short, there was already a lot of competitive Spaceman players running Dark Angels, and they've just pivoted from Ironstorm to Gladius, and they've got the skill and the experience and the knowledge of the faction and of Space Marines in general to make that transition seamlessly and to get some pretty instant results. That's my theory. Let me know what you think. Well, however you slice it, Dark Angels seeing great resurgence in player numbers, great resurgence in variety, and a real fucking push on Gladius Task Force. You know what? I'm happy to see it. As long as I'm not basically facing fucking Ironstorm all the time, I'm happy to face something a bit different. It's the opposite of my issue with Necrons. Necrons, I don't care that Hypercrypt is powerful. I care that Hypercrypt is still going to be the most popular detachment. With Dark Angels, I don't care that Gladius is powerful, potentially even brokenly powerful with Dark Angels. Just fucking grateful to face something other than Ironstorm. There's a little bit of a discrepancy here with the data, because you have got AdMech here, which is at 46%, and that is slightly higher. But if you actually delve into like a lot of the AdMech detachments, there are some which are doing really, really well, and there's sort of one faction, one detachment, which is holding them back. So, a couple of things to know about AdMech. 16 players. That's a lot for them. I mean, a lot of weeks go by and AdMech, even when you've got like 800 plus players, they're on single digits. So the fact that AdMech are well on the way to having fucking 20, they're not quite there, but they're on the way to having 20 plus players is significant. They also were able to win 38 out of 82 games, and they had a few people that actually are able to go 4-1, which is cool. But they didn't win any tournaments. Now, delving into the data a little bit further, Skitarii Hunter cohort is still the more popular detachment, with out of the 16 players, 10 or so of them running Skitarii. Big reason is that everyone has been building into Skitarii for the last few months. If AdMech get buffs, then people are going to be able to just use those buffs with their existing, for those existing collections. Now, Skitarii Hunter cohort had a 56% win rate, which is alarming to say the least, and had the most players. It seems that in GW's effort to encourage people to use other kinds of AdMech army, they've actually just doubled down and make everyone want to run Skitarii Hunter cohort. I do suspect, though, that the reason we're seeing like player increases for AdMech is because their points went up significantly, but so did their power. So now you need to have way less models to have a viable AdMech army, which is a double doozy. It's great. It means you spend less money. It's less for you to paint. It's easier for you to get your army together. It's easier to get your army built up and painted. So Skitarii Hunter cohort, still the most popular and still seem to be one of the most powerful. But we have had a couple of other outliers here. So Deus Arm Conclave had a 50% win rate and someone actually went 4-1 with it. Cybernetica cohort had a 45% win rate, and Explorator Manifold had a 67% win rate. But all of these have only got sort of 1 or 2 people playing them. The one that still seems phenomenally dogshit is Radzone Core. It is actually the second most played detachment and had a 20% win rate. That is horrific. So long story short, AdMech have definitely seen a big boost from the balanced data slate, from the points changes, That has boosted not only their player numbers, but also their win rate. But it still seems like people are gravitating towards Skitarii as the go-to detachment. What we need to wait and watch and discover is if they start filtering out into some of these other detachments, or if there's a little flurry of experimentation before people end up settling back on Skitarii Hunter. I think give the AdMech a bit of time, though. If there is a hidden gem in some of these other these other detachments, they'll find it and they'll start running it. Moving over to Chaos Space Marines, really interesting set of data here. So 47 players, really high number of players considering the gutting that people thought that the Codex got with the balanced data slate. 119 wins out of 238. Just raw number of wins there. Really, really strong. They actually had 9 people, which is probably over 20% of the players, roughly off the top of my head, were able to, or was it just under? Just under 20% of players were able to go 4-1 or higher with the faction. And we actually had someone win a tournament with Space Marine, Chaos Space Marine this time. What size tournament did they win? I guess is the big question for a lot of people. They won the biggest one. So the largest event of the weekend. Glasshammer Super Major, 5 rounds. Top 4 had a playoff. And Chaos Space Marines took it, going 6-0. That's pretty big. And they took it with Renegade Raiders as well. So, let's dive into this a little bit more. Chaos Cult, my favorite detachment, actually had a 70% win rate. Oh, yeah. So, there were only 2 players, so it is a small sample size. But one of those players went 3-2. One of those players went 4-1. And they had to combine had a 70% win rate. I fucking love that. Fucking love that. Chaos Cult, baby! Fucking, when we were doing the reveals, the leaked Chaos Codex, I was like, Chaos Cult seems strong. I was like, they seem strong because you don't have to go nuts and run like hundreds and hundreds of models. You can actually just take these shitty units and layer on buff after buff after buff onto them until somehow they're hitting well above their weight. It's just like Guard. You start off with something shitty and you layer it on until you've got it. And I saw the Chaos Cult attachment and I was like, I like it. I like it. What can I say? I like it. And now this is the second week in a row where we've seen people get good results with Chaos Cult. Guys, I don't know, but it seems like the blood packs are doing some fucking interesting things. I'm just saying. So Chaos Cult having consistently small sample size, but that small sample size consistently being high is good. We then have Veterans of the Long War, another small sample size, but 4 players. We're going 12 out of 21. 2 people went 4-1, and overall a 57% win rate. Woo! Townsend, my mic will be peaking because I got overexcited. That's cool. I mean, Veterans of the Long War is quite boring. It's quite boring, but hey, if it works, it works. I mean, isn't Veterans of the Long War basically Gladius, but with extra steps? I feel like it might be. Soul Forged Warp Pack. Okay, a little bit of vindication here. I've been saying since the beginning that Soul Forged Warp Pack is the high risk, high reward detachment for Chaos Space Marines, and we're seeing that. Now, isn't it interesting how we had 9 players with a 51% win rate, but no one went 4-1? So what this tells me is basically everyone went 3-2 or 2-3. Now that makes Soul Forged really kind of cool because it's the detachment that you can take into a tournament and you'll do well with it, but at some point you're just going to rattle yourself to death. Soul Forged starting to see a bit of resurgence. It just took a few players with some balls to start being willing to run the risk. It's kind of like a retaliation detachment for Cadre for Tau. If you're willing to fucking go, you might get some results from it, but there's a real strong chance that it all falls apart before you get there. Despite the great Stalinist purge of assault weapons, it seems that Renegade Raiders still is the most popular go-to detachment for Chaos Space Marines. 24 players, by far the most out of any detachment, and actually the majority of people ran Renegade Raiders. So if you add all the other detachments up, they only had 23 players, and Renegade Raiders had 24 on its own. 57 games won out of 119 games played, giving it a 48% win rate. Now, we had 5 players go 4-1, and then 1 player who won the big tournament. And apparently someone said in chat it's Josh Roberts, so that's the head of the GW balancing team. Maybe making a statement like, we didn't fuck up Chaos, don't worry guys. Who knows? It's kind of interesting how Renegade Raiders is the most popular, but it doesn't actually have the highest win rate at all. Like, if you look at Soulforge Warpack, it actually technically has a higher win rate. But it's just that Renegade Raiders, like 25% of people that ran it went 4-1 or better. I guess it is proof of the old adage that movement wins games. And I guess it's also kind of proof that when you look through Renegade Raiders, there really aren't any like bad bits to it. Like, all the stratagems work, all the enhancements are fine, the ability is always going to have some play. Yeah. As Serie says, 48% is perfectly balanced considering ties. Yeah. So Renegade Raiders, so it doesn't seem like much is shifting around that. It's still, what I mean by that is still very popular, still very powerful, still seems to be the go-to. We've had a couple of other attachments here which have done better than expected. So Fellhammer Siege Host. When this codex first dropped, I said Fellhammer would be good, and then for the last few weeks, it stoically refused to get better than like 30% win rate. Now we've seen 3 players run it and them come out with a 47% win rate. Is this a blip? Are we starting to see people get to grips with the detachment and start to get some results with it? I was surprised that Fellhammer did so badly. Maybe the franchise is starting to turn around. Pat-bound Zealots, 4 players, 10 wins out of 22 games played, 45% win rate. Pat-bound Zealots is just like the old Slaves to Darkness detachment, but slightly shitter. The old Slaves to Darkness had about this win rate. This one's got about this win rate. Basically, no, nothing's really changed here. And then we get to the sad ones. Look how they massacred my boys! No! No! So annoying that by far the 2 coolest detachments, I would argue, in the entire fucking game. I'm not just talking about Chaos Space Marines. The 2 coolest attachments in the entire 40k right now. Maybe with the exception with the Brood Brothers Auxilia one, but that's just because I'm a simp for anything guard related, alright? It's so annoying that they're not better. It turns out that having an attachment entirely built around Battle Shock, as you know, it doesn't matter how hard you go on it, it's not a good enough mechanic, Battle Shock. And it also turns out that having a bunch of really, really, really cool, flavorful rules is great, but if they never, ever really come up, it's not a great attachment. That's the problem. When I ran Deceptors, I felt like I never got to use any of the cool stratagems, and I never got to. I often felt like I wasn't really having a trait, a detachment trait. Let's tell you one thing about this though. This lets you peer through the lies of the Jedi. This lets you peer through bullshit narrative that Chaos Space Marine players have been feeding us all for like 3 or 4 decades. Because Chaos Space Marine players, they know this, and we know this. So everything I'm saying now, it's not even beef. It's just a fucking scientific fact, all right? They love to moan. They love to moan about how they're not the favourite faction of GW, about how they never get interesting rules, about how all their rules are shit, and how that, you know, if GW just gave them some... They just want things to be balanced, they just want things to be interesting. And it's like, okay, right? Here are 2 of the most flavourful detachments that I think GW has ever released since fucking 3.5 edition, all right? I've got a hot take, but I'm gonna fucking forge on with this, despite how wrong I might be. Here are two of the most flavorful attachments. Oh, we don't want them. In fact, even though we have loads of flavorful attachments, we're all just going to run this fucking basic bitch, beige jumper, white toast, Taylor Swift fucking music detachment. That's what it is. So, Chaos... Fuck off, watch. So, Chaos players... I don't want my watch just beeping at me. Chaos players, I see you for the fucking shitsters you really are. Necrons have never been made any bones about being bullshit overpowered whacker meta chasers. But Chaos Basic players have tried to present this image of being, we just want flavor. Of all of the flavors you could have chosen, you went
Reporting for
with
duty,
Sultan.
sir.
Turns out that if you give a hive time at lethal hits and give all Tyranid units in Synapse range +1 strength in melee, that Tyranids get kind of good. There's a good short potential here. If Evan, if you're in the if you're still here, man, you know that's that like meme where the guy's like, when does game get fucking good? And then it goes over. He's like, bow, 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 bow. Like, that was a terrible impression. It's like a love song. It plays.
Skip this shit. Skip. But when does this game get fucking good?
Tyranids, look at that player number. Damn, son. Tyranids were looking very anemic a couple of weeks ago, and now they have been chowing down on some juicy biomass. 57 players makes them one of the most played factions. I think it's the second most popular faction, if not the most played. I'm going to go with second most played, but it very well could be the most played faction this week, which is really interesting to see. 146 wins, just a great raw win rate, and then out of 285 games means that they had a 51% win rate. Woo! And 12 players. Shit, son. 12 players, which is more than 20% of their players, went 4-1 or better. There have been weeks when we've had no Tyranid players go 4-1, or like maybe 1 or 2 at most. Holy shit, man. So we've got 12 players going 4-1, and they actually won a fucking tournament. I couldn't tell you the last time Nids won a fucking tournament. Going through these detachments, Vanguard Onslaught seems to have done very, very well out of this. 21 players, 62 wins, the vast majority of their 4-1s, and that's where they got the tournament win, and a 59% win rate. Turns out if you take the sneaky beaky faction and then also make them fucking powerful with lethal hits and with extra strength, that they're actually sneaky and also rip and teary. So Vanguard doing really, really good. Also might be the fact that they're playing into some good missions. They've got some good mission play as well. Crusher Stampede seeing a good... for the first time... Let's not overlook this, actually. Guys, Crusher Stampede did something. Now, it's a small sample size, to be sure, but it did something. And Sword actually went 4-1 with it, which is incredible. So, Crusher Stampede is no longer ass, which is actually going to make a lot of Tyranid players happy, because like Guard players love running tank companies, Tyranid players love running Nidzilla. Invasion Fleet, it's like herpes, you just can't get rid of it. Still the most popular faction, 25 players, and but 25 players, but nowhere near as many of those players going 4-1. So Vanguard actually had less players and had a lot more go 4-1. No one won a tournament with it, but 47% win rate. Invasion Fleet remains the comfy pair of slippers that Tyranid players can put on. And like a pair of slippers, you can walk around your house in them and you can feel very comfy, but you don't want to take them up a mountain. Now, that analogy might not make much sense, so I'm going to ruin it by over-explaining it. What I mean by that is, you can wear a comfy pair of slippers and they'll do fine when you're in a comfy environment. And when you're happy with going going to a tournament and going like 2-3, 3-2. The Invasion Fleet never, that's all it's ever offered. But if you want to climb a fucking mountain, you're not going to wear a pair of slippers. If you want to win a tournament, you're not going to run Invasion Fleet. You are going to run Vanguard Onslaught. Apparently, that's what the data is telling us anyway. Now we've also got a couple of other results here. So Synaptic Nexus did things. 7 players. Not bad at all. 15 wins out of 35, giving us a 43% win rate. Not great, not terrible. I think we need a little bit more from data from this before we really start saying Synaptic Nexus is meta shaping or anything. Main takeaway is it wasn't shit. It did something. Players won games with it, but no one was able to go better than 3-2 with it. Assimilation Swarm, 1 guy, and what a hell of a guy! Absolute Giga Chad. Came in here with a 3-2. So whoever you are, Mr. Assimilation Swarm, you did good, kid. You did good. Overall, hot take is tuners are good now, and that makes me happy because it means I get to go to tournaments and do more guard versus Tyranid matchups, which makes me happy because Tyranid players are all universally fucking sound, and Tyranid players always embrace the fucking Starship Troopers aliens narrative when you start throwing the models down and doing the games. Yeah, always good. It's a classic matchup. You can't go wrong. Ah, fuck. Fuck. Why won't you fucking die? Just die. No one likes you. No one likes you. People only play you when you're good. You're a fucking shit faction. Anyway, because Adeptus Custodes, they were nerfed. And lo, there was much rejoicing. And then they got buffed. And I just... how many times have we nerfed you, old man? It's so true. Look, okay. So the main takeaway is Custodians are better now. 44 players, 110 victories out of 217 games, with 8 people going 4-1. Someone even won a fucking tournament, 51% win rate. Okay, now it turns out that when it says 44 players, it actually means 37 players, and 7 of them didn't get the fucking memo. Look at that. Null Maiden Vigil. Yeah, like fucking... Someone did well with it. Someone won what? Someone won a tournament with Null Maiden Vigil. I was going to breeze past this attachment, but okay. Turns out Sisters of Silence meta incoming. I have no fucking clue what's in that list. I bet all these fucking people feel stupid. Someone went 5-0 with Null Maiden, the mad lad. He used 2 tanks and a Canis Rex, but it still counts. There you go. There you go. Apparently there were no maidens in the Null Maiden detachment, which is amazing. Holy shit, man. But for the vast majority of people, they're going over to Shield Host. Now, if there's one sliver of hope, is that they didn't win any tournaments with Shield Host. But fuck me, man. If this... I always say that Custodes are they're just a fair weather faction. Okay, there's no one out there that actually likes Custodes and actually plays them. No one. Like, there were people that will tell you they like Custodes and that they are Custodes players. They're lying. They're pieces of shit. They're lying. Okay, Custodes are just a fair weather faction. Last week they were shit. No one played them. This week they're good. One of the most played factions. I think I hate Custodes more than I hate Tau, and it takes a lot of fucking bullshit for me to say that. I don't know. It's definitely an irrational hatred. I think it's just because I find them somewhat... I think it's... If I was to try and explain why I've recently begun to hate Custodes so much, they are just a meta chaser faction. Whenever I've played them, it's been a fucking grind. It just feels like an absolute grind. And it seems like no matter the edition, it's the same shit every single time. But anyway, this video shouldn't really be about me just shitting on the Custodes. It should be about me analyzing the data. So I'll try and be a professional. Leaving aside the meme of the Null Maiden Vigil list, leaving aside the meme of leaving aside the other outlying detachments, the big thing. Let's be serious here for a moment, guys. They're back, and you are gonna. And I always say this: whenever Custodes have at least one viable build, you're going to see them everywhere, like a bad fucking rash. And so once again, you need to take Custodes into account when it comes to your tournament lists. Do you have the ability to fucking flatten a Custodes squad or 2 each turn? If the answer is yes, your list is okay. Your answer is no. Go back to the drawing board. I know I'm not going to be the only one talking about the meta of the meta, the meta reaction. I know I'm not going to be the only one that has that reaction when they see Custodes being popular again. And that's, I think the problem with the faction is it's very, very one-dimensional. Big thing is, I guess what kind of makes, I guess one thing that's just poked in my mind, I wonder what the future of the Custodes Forge World stuff is, because a lot of factions have lost their Forge World stuff, and traditionally Custodes aren't very good without Forge World. I wonder if they'll get the Necron treatment. 2 months down the line, all of it goes away. Or, like the fucking snowflakes they are, I wonder if they'll get special treatment. Next, we've got Grey Knights. You know what? I was really, really happy to see Grey Knights getting picked up. And I was kind of happy that the Grey Knights were sort of inheriting a lot of like the Custodes vibe of like, you know, that they're easy to paint. Grey Knights are a ton of fun. Like Grey Knights, I've never had a bad game into Grey Knights, and that's include like when they've been utterly broken in other editions. The thing with Grey Knights is you can typically kill their stuff. In 10th edition, Grey Knights are interesting because Grey Knights are good because they're interesting, because they teleport around and they've got shenanigans and they've got layers and they're interesting. So it's a shame that Grey Knights have seen a bit of a fall in their player numbers, but there still seems to be enough there to keep people interested. And looking at these numbers, Grey Knights, 28 players, 69 wins, nice, 136 games played, 4 people going 4-1 or better, one of those people winning a tournament with a 51% win rate. Overall, Grey Knights did receive some points nerfs, so you can't quite get as many Nemesis Dread Knights in your army, but it turns out that if you can still take 5 Nemesis Dread Knights, that your list is pretty good. It just turned out that taking 6 of them was maybe a bit too buku. Overall, Grey Knights still doing exactly what they were doing. It's just a shame that their surge in popularity is seemed to have leveled out somewhat. Thousand Suns. Now, there was a little bit of a chit-chat that Thousand Suns were in the shitter after the last balance update. Turns out that rumours of their death were greatly exaggerated. It just, they're not, what are they now? 1, 2, 3. They've just for the first time in a long time, they're no longer in the top 8. Now, this is probably a temporary situation. They're probably going to fluctuate in and out of the top 8 like they have been doing from the beginning. And there's still clearly a huge amount of potential. They are 9th out of all the factions. They're 9th. Now, 32 players means that people haven't jumped ship. That's pretty solid player numbers and pretty consistent with what we've seen. 83 wins out of 164 games, giving them a 51% win rate. And a phenomenal number of people going 4-1. Interestingly, no one winning a tournament. I suspect that Thousand Suns, I think they'll win a tournament. I still think they can win tournaments. I still think they're going to win your local RTT. I think they're going to win your local GT. I suspect with some of the nerfs that they received as part of the balanced data slate, I think they took some pretty heavy nerfs to things like double Doombolt and stuff like that. I think what you're going to find is every other or every third week they win a tournament, and it could be of any size. But they're not necessarily going to win, but the rest of the time they're going 4-1. Essentially, they need Tzeentch to peer into the future, and they just need to have that the fate. They need their fate to. They need. What I'm trying to say. I'm trying to make a cool metaphor. I'm just going to fuck it off. They need a good run, and if they get a certain, every so often, out of all the games that played, someone's going to get that run, or they're going to get that luck that just lets them get to the tournament win. But it's not going to be all the fucking time. So Thousands aren't quite in the top 8, but they are definitely still a strong faction that deserve your respect. And you can see people haven't given up on them, and you can see still got some fucking teeth. Might not be winning tournaments this week. They still got a lot of potential. I don't mean to alarm anyone, but we still haven't talked about Guard. I mean, you can see the number up there. But yeah, there's some real doozies in this top 8, man. So starting off in the first top 8 faction, fucking World Eaters. I don't really, I have to admit, I'm a bit of a blind spot when it comes to World Eaters and what sort of nerfs they've got. To me, the reason it's a blind spot is because World Eaters, they just run at you and chop you up. And sometimes they're really good at it, and sometimes they're less good at doing it. But they generally, whatever happens, whatever nerfs or buffs they receive, it's the same fucking game plan. Either way, right? Yeah, but clearly they've come out of this whole thing looking very, very spicy. Now, one thing, it's also very, very appropriate, as Joe DePunk has pointed out. It's very appropriate World Eaters came in 8th, right? That's cool. That's cool. The blessed number! Yeah, there you go. Now, it very well may be that World Eaters have received some very significant buffs. There could be another factor here. Pariah Nexus has a new deployment zone. At least one of them, where the no man's land is very short. I think players in some places start 12 inches away from it. Like the no man's land is 12 inches wide. It's something insanely short, right? So as Francois was saying, if World Eaters were on change time, they only got 5 points for 8 bound. So it might not be that the rules, that the balance data set did much for them. It might not be that the Unitorn Field Manual did much for them. It might be Pariah Nexus. It might be that giving fucking World Eaters a 12-inch no man's land or whatever it is, very, very short no man's land, is fucking fruity. Not fucking gnarly. That's gonna be a big, big, big factor. Because if they could just get to you, turn one like and just get at you, they only do one thing. If they do that thing real well, and they can't, and they do that. They only do one thing. They do that thing real well, and if they can do it really fucking quickly as well, nice. Also, Sword Smith says in Nexus you can't see shit because of terrain, and we start closer. Is that true? Guys, I could be very, very wrong about this. Please, please, please correct me if I am. But I was looking at the new terrain layouts for Pariah Nexus, and it looked like things had opened up a little bit. Am I wrong? Am I a fool? Am I a foolish fool? Or has terrain closed? Because I mean, GW terrain traditionally is quite open. If they've made it even dense, if they've made the terrain denser, then that would explain why World Eaters have done better, started to do better. But if they've made it more open, it indicates maybe more of a mission thing rather than a terrain thing. It does, however, you have to remember that WTC terrain, very, very dense. UKTC terrain. Swordsmith, in Tipping Point, there's a ruin on the close side that Angron fits behind. Basically, World Eaters, it's the same game plan. Long story short, World Eaters are doing the same shit, but now it's a new day. New day, it's a new dawn. Seems to be doing good things for them. Sisters of Battle. So, turns out that nerfing their points into the ground was not enough. Sisters, I will prepare thine anus, and I'm not talking in the case of internet research. I think if you're still doing this well after receiving some pretty fucking gnarly points changes, you're going to get the Eldar treatment. You're going to get more nerfs. Sword and Smith, Sisters of the new Eldar. Yeah, that's the word on the street. Now, for those that don't know, Sisters' armies went up by like 10 to 20%. Some players are reporting that their peak armies went up as much as 300 plus points. The average seems to be for most of the players that they've gone up to 200 points. Clearly, Sisters are very, very, despite that, Sisters are very, very powerful. 38 numbers, 38 players, 38 Sister Battle. I think that has to be the highest we've seen in 10th edition. It's getting up there. So a lot of people jumping on the Sisters train. 102 victories out of 196 games played, giving them a 52% win rate. They also had 9 people go at least 4-1, and they won 2 tournaments this weekend. Looking at the breakdown of the armies, there is a little bit of variety, a little bit. You had 5 people go Hallowed Martyrs, which actually had even though only 5 people went Hallowed Martyrs, they had almost half of the people that went 4-1, but they didn't win a tournament. 73% win rate with Hallowed Martyrs. It makes my sphincter pucker. That's real high. Like, there's a high win rate. There's a real high win rate. Oh my god. You've then got Penitent Host, which had only a small data set, only 3 people with a 50% win rate, but it's only 50%. And then you've got fucking casuals. This one fucking detachment's got a better win rate than entire factions. People are saying that's a blip. It very well may be a blip. Army of Faith, 6 people, 15 games, 1 out of 31 played, 48% win rate. No one went 4-1. So Army of Faith looks solid, 3-2. Penitent Host looks solid, 3-2. Hallowed Martyrs, we better fucking hope that's a blip. Otherwise people are gonna start getting fucking pegged by a bunch of martyrs. Before they get pegged, they're gonna get fucking peed on, and that pee's gonna burn. Bringers of the Flame. I wonder which attachment people think is the most powerful. Oh right, yeah, the one that has fucking double all the other attachments combined. 24 players, 61 victories over 125 games played. 5 people. The most of an attachment went 4-1 or better, and actually 3 people went 4-1, and 2 people went all the way 5-0 or 6-0. They won every single fucking game. 49% win rate. That is real. That's real strong out of the box. Now, what's very important? So sisters are going to get more nerfs. Long story short, sisters are very powerful. They're going to get more nerfs. Important thing to add on though, because I don't want to basically be saying the same shit every single time. There was a misconception when an army first drops that the win rate's really high, and then naturally that win rate goes down as people get used to it and start beating that faction, start beating that detachment. That can happen. That can happen. But actually, what tends to happen with an overtly powerful detachment, overtly powerful faction, is the win rate goes up over time. Because essentially, more people jump on it, more skilled players start jumping on it, and then people just get more experienced with it. And people start unlocking it and getting every bit of juice out of the squeeze. Like I said, it can be analysed both ways. If you've got a very one-dimensional playstyle, like Orc Pressure at the beginning of 10th edition, people can learn to counter that and beat that. If you've got an overtly powerful thing, and it's not one-dimensional, then you will see that win rate go up. And yes, Serie is a good point. You've got to start taking into account the mirror match and all that. But let's remove the mirror match from the equation, knowing that artificially suppresses the win rate. You're going to see a faction's ability to win games and the faction's ability to win tournaments go up over time if it is powerful. So, Sisters of Battle, in my opinion, do not be fooled by the 49% win rate. If they're doing this well out of the gate, they're only going to go up. If you are a Sisters player right now, enjoy your power. Enjoy it. Because you're probably going to catch a few more nerfs in the future. Chaos Demons! Chaos fucking Demons, man. GW, they're fucking pulling so many levers. They're cutting the heads off chicken. They're making them dance around, spilling blood on a Yahtzee board. They're throwing runes down. It's like fucking chitty chitty bang bang in here. They're like they're trying everything that they can to like mix Chaos Demons up, and it doesn't make a difference. Yeah, Chaos Demons are top 6, but they're doing exactly what they've always done. Win loads of games, but not win any tournaments. Wah, 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 wah. Oh, I know, it's pretty sad. Overall, Chaos Demons are a strong faction, though. And Chaos Demons proving once again that they are an incredibly powerful faction. They are almost, in the hands of a good player, you're guaranteed to go 4-1. But it just seems that almost no matter what Chaos Demons do, well, no matter what the players do, no matter what DW does, Chaos Demons just can't go like 5-0 or 6-0. Now, Swords and Smith, you are accusing me of lies, sir. Previous demons won 3. They do. There are, of course, there are always weeks when they end up doing really well. Of course. But what you tend to find when demons win tournaments, what happens is it's not 5-0. It's 4-0, 1 draw. So it's 4 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. And then it winning the overall tournament on points. And we've seen that consistently since the beginning of 10th edition. We may see that change, and there are always, as Swordsmith said, there's always exceptions that prove the rule. Of course. But let's not look at the exceptions, let's look at the general trends. And the general trend seems to be that Chaos Demons have been like in this position for a long time, and that the faction is able to win is very powerful, is able to win a lot of games, but they don't ever seem to have that final bit that lets them be a faction that consistently wins tournaments. Long story short, demons win games, but they rarely win events. Hold on to your butts. Motherfucking Astra Millie, what? You're in the guard now, son. Imperial Guard coming in with a 53% win rate, baby. Fucking yeah. That's how we do it in the core. Every day in the core, it's like a day on the farm. Every meal a banquet, every paycheck a fortune, every formation a parade. I love the core. Kiff, we have made it into the top 5. Informing the men. I'm not gonna lie. At the moment that I saw this, I wept manly tears of joy, and I got an uncomfortable feeling in my trousers because one word came into my head: vindication. A lot of guard players, they saw the artillery nerfs and they were like, "Oh no, our faction is dead." No kidding, man. Last Meta Monday, I had people telling me that Guard were like a 30% win rate faction. Some people were getting really fucking fruity with it and be like, "We're a 20% win rate faction. We're a dead faction now." And I'm not gonna lie, I could see their point of view because artillery was super strong, and artillery did basically get taken around the back of the chemical sheds and fucking shot. But the thing is that Born Soldiers now affects more units. Yeah, you can say, no, it doesn't more, it affects less than half our data sheets. Okay, true. But you can build, what I mean is you can build your list so it affects every fucking unit in your army. Every single one. It's just so fucking spicy now. Lethal hits is one of the most bullshit, broken mechanics in this entire game. It is. As someone who recently dabbled in Tau, I know, lambast me, but as someone who recently sullied themselves by touching Tau models, I can tell you, just having access to lethal hits, army-wide, easy peasy, with very little effort needing to be put into it, fucking, it's such a power boost. And that is what's happened here. 32 players. Now, what's interesting is our player numbers have gone down a little bit. I expect that to be temporary. I'm not saying we're going to see an instant reversal next week, but I think we're going to see it go down a bit as a lot of people who have left the faction because they think we're shit now. But even if they want to come back straight away, what you'll probably find is it takes a bit of time for guard players to adjust their collections. I mean, it's going to take a while for everyone to go out there and buy or print, 6 chimeras and a whole bunch of like fucking Lemurous Punishers and stuff like that. All right. Now, it'll give it 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month at tops, and then you'll start seeing the player numbers recover, and you'll start seeing the health of the community back. But considering how bad people were saying we were, the fact we still have 32 players is pretty strong. That's a bad number for Guard. That's not a bad number for a community in general. Guard always got good representation. Now, we had 86 wins out of 163 games played, and we had 6 people go 4-1, and we had 5 people that went 4-1, and 1 person actually won a fucking tournament. Fucking well done to that Giga Chad. 53% win rate though. Oh, suit you, sir. Now let's have a look at the size of the event that this motherfucker won. Hey, there we go. So, Toys of Mass Destruction. 5-round GT, 40 players. That's a solid sized GT right there. Not huge, not a major. It's just a fucking quintessential GT. Let's have a look at some of the other guard placements though here. So at Glasshammer, did guard get into any of the top ones? Guard going 4-1 at the 50-round. 2 guard players going 4-1 in Scotland at 50-round GT. Guard going 4-1 at another GT. Guard's going 5-0 at that GT. That might be most of it. Guard going 4-1 at the smaller size GT. Smaller. Not tiny, but smaller. That'll be the main of it, won't it? Yeah, that'll be the main. Maybe the other occasional guard player popping up. Now, what's the point I'm trying to make there? This 53% win rate is one we should be very, very proud of. This many people going 4-1 should be something we're very, very proud of. And that guy winning that fucking 40 player event is something we should be very proud of. You will notice that there's a conspicuous lack of guard placing 4-1 in kind of bigger events like majors and super majors. That very well may be an indication that guard is now firmly a faction that can go 4-1 in any environment and can do well and be a local GT winner or a mid-sized GT winner. It may also be an indication that guard don't, like Chaos Demons, some don't really have what it takes to win a big event. I think time will tell. We have heard from some big players out there, such as David Gaylord, who's the guy that really put guard on the map, on the tournament scene, you know, winning super majors with them under the old artillery spam doctrine. He has said that he's dropping the faction, he's moving on to the next one, he's embracing them. He wasn't a guard player, he was a player playing guard, and he's now moving on to the next thing. Now, that's fair enough. Like, he is a meta chaser, he's a competitive player. There's no ill will, but no shade being thrown there. So it may be that guard, for what we might finally be entering here, is this is all meant to be positive. Okay, I'm going to sum this up. I'm rambling like a motherfucker. Let me sum this up. We might finally be entering the true Goldilocks zone, Warhammer, where your faction is powerful enough where casual players actually feel powerful. And people who go to tournaments can consistently go 3-2, 4-1, no matter the size of the event, come away feeling like they've had a good fucking tournament, and that if you play in your local GTs and your local RTTs, you, with guard, might even get to bring home gold. And you've got a reasonable chance of doing that. But you're not so fucking broken and overpowered that you're going to start catching nerfs left, right, and centre, aka sisters. That's the true Goldilocks, where it's good shit for everyone who puts a bit of effort into their lists and plays semi-regularly. It's good shit for the semi-pros, for the semi-competitive ones, and for the semi-casual scene. If that's where we're at, I'm a fucking happy camper, I am. I'll have to find out, I'll have to see. Overall, I'm pretty happy about guard. You guys are pretty happy about guard. Right now, we've come out of the nerfs very well, and maybe, just maybe, this result here might be enough to tempt some people back into the faction and tempt some top tier players back in as well. But if not, and they've all moved on to other pastures, then guard look to be set to be in a really nice, solid position. Either way, gravy. Moving on, we have Chaos Knights. Ooh, Chaos Knights doing so much better than Imperial Knights is very, very, very interesting. I feel like Chaos Knights have consistently been doing quite well. But Chaos, I always draw the parallel to Chaos Demons and Chaos Knights. Really good player numbers, really good raw win rate. 8 people this week going 4-1. No one won a fucking tournament. 54% win rate. I think the big thing to watch for the Chaos Knight meta is if they stick to War Dog spam. Because if they stick to War Dog spam, they're not really going to be leveraging the big buff that they got with the Balanced Data Slate. My number one hope for this faction is they get a bit more interesting. I'd love to see a big fucking giant Chaos knight walking around. It would be nice to see a bit of variety. Overall, it seems like Chaos Knights are still doing great on the win rate, doing great on being able to go in Form 1, but this week they haven't quite got any tournaments. But it's the first week out, things may change. Like I said, number one hope, let's just hope they get some fucking big knights in there, because way more interesting. Blood Angels! Blood Angles. Alright, this is same shit, different day. So apparently, no one, unless this is just, I suspect this probably is missing from the data, but Blood Angels only ran Sons of Sanguinius at tournaments. That's fucking based, if that's true. Now, 33 players ran Sons of Sanguinius, and they won 88 out of 164 games, giving them a 54% win rate. They also had 5 people go 4-1, and they had 2 people go 5-0 or 6-0. They won every game. That's fucking powerful. That's fucking cool. There's been a lot of back and forth between the Blood Angels and the Black Templars for who's the more powerful melee, traditionally melee combat marine chapter. It seems, unfortunately, for the Black Templars that the Sons of Sanguinius are doing somewhat better than the Sons of Sigismund. I think we can probably put the debate to rest for now. I think Blood Angels are the new top Space Marine chapter. And why not? They run at you, they chop you up, and a lot of the benefits we've talked about with other factions, like World Eaters, being able to cover that no man's land even faster, being able to get hacking and whacking and smacking even quicker, only ever going to benefit the Blood Angels. So, Sons of Sanguinius, look, I like Black Templars, but I'll always tip my hat to the Sons of Sanguinius. I'll always tip my hat to the Blood Angels. They're a very, very base chapter, very, very cool chapter, and from the fucking get-go, they have been running Sons of Sanguinius and been trying to make it work. They're clearly starting to reach final form. They're getting good results out of it. Maybe it'll be a blip, but I think we're going to see some. I don't know if they'll always be in the top 3. They might be. They might get better. But I think that Blood Angels are going to be consistently in the top 8. They have been for a while now. I think that's going to continue. Really interesting one here is the Drukhari. Now, one guy didn't get the memo not to run Real Space Raiders, but apparently that was a good thing because he went 5-1 at a tournament. So well done to you, Real Space guy. 83%. Everyone else, though, went Sky Splinter Assault. And, okay, I'm going to basically lump these two factions together now. Let's talk about Drukhari and Space Wolves together. Because you'll notice that they're basically doing the same thing. Drukhari have a very, very high win rate. They have a lot of people going 4-1. They have a really solid number of players, but they don't win any tournaments. Space Wolves have a solid number of players. They have lots of people going 4-1. They have a 54% win rate, which is really high, but they don't have anyone winning any tournaments. It's interesting to see people try Real Space Raiders again, but Sky's result still seems to be the best. Likewise, Space Wolves, we're seeing people try other bits out, but it looks like really Stormlance is still the main one, but there's a bit of shenanigans going on with the champions of Russ. Really, both of these factions, I'm going to say it now, Space Wolves aren't top, Drukhari aren't top. They look top, but I don't think you can be a top tier faction. I don't think you should really be. You're not in gold position, in my opinion, if you don't have a tournament win. I'm not saying your faction's shit. I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think who really came first place here is the Blood Angels. I'm giving that if I was handing the Olympic gold out, I'd be giving it to the Blood Angels. And then the Guard. If you look at the factions who have got the highest win rates and who have got tournament wins, what you see here is Blood Angels first, Guard second, and Sisters of Battle third. And I think that's important because it's not just about being able to win games. It's about being able to win tournaments. You can win all the games you want in the fucking world, but if you can't win a tournament, are you even S tier, bro? It's not about the heats. about the final. Space Wolves, they can win a lot of games, but they're not winning a lot of tournaments. Drukhari can win a lot of games, but they're not winning a lot of tournaments. Knights, Demons, even World Eaters, winning lots of games, but they're not winning a lot of tournaments. If we look at the top 3 factions that not only had a 50+% win rate, also won a tournament in the mix as well, you're looking at Blood Angels, followed by Guard, followed by Sisters. I think another factor is not only winning a tournament, it's the size of the tournament. And it's, I think, the number one, to determine who is really the top faction, you probably have to look at win rate combined with, did you win a tournament, combined with what was the size of that tournament. Are factions which can win a lot of games, and you should anticipate being able to deal with them. They are very fast, high pressure lists. And they've done very well. And Space Wolves have done very, very well consistently week in, week out. Space Wolves are the 4-on-1 faction. They are the 4-on-1 faction. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Blood Angels, Guard, and Sisters, I think, are some of the most solid factions out there right now. They have the ability to win games, and regular size GT events, they could even take the gold. Essentially, I would say that Sisters of Battle, Ashman of Time, and Blood Angels, they're kind of like the everyman winners. If you are a top tier player with unbelievable skill who can just play his game in a way that is like seeing through the matrix, right? You don't see the numbers anymore. You just see blonde, brunette, redhead. That's all you fucking see. Then you probably aren't going to be drawn to Blood Angels, Ashman of Time. You might have drawn to Sisters, to be fair, but you're not going to be drawn to Blood Angels and Ashman of Time. You know, the biggest event wasn't run by any of the top 8. The biggest event was won by fucking Chaos Space Marines, who I think are like a bottom tier faction. Maybe not quite bottom tier. They were a mid-pack faction. According to our analysis. But if you're someone that wants to go to your local GT, you want to have a solid chance of winning that, you do worse than picking Guard. Do worse than picking Blood Angels. Looking at this through the lens of Guard, as this is a Guard channel, so I will do that. I'm in command here. Do I think Guard are S tier? Do I think Guard are going to be winning super majors anytime soon? I'm not 100% convinced. A lot of big players out there are saying no. Do I think Guard are A tier? Yes. I think Guard to be S tier, I think you have to win super majors. I think that is the metric. You have to be able to win S tiers on a semi-regular basis. You know, just a phenomenal player has to be able to win super majors with your faction, and I don't think that's where Guard are. I think Guard can win local GTs, and they might occasionally bag a major here and there. But hey, being a GT winning faction, I'll buy that for $1 because everyone predicted 30% win rate. I'll fucking take 53% at a local GT in the back pocket. That is victory chicken. Gentlemen, that right there, as a community, is goddamn victory chicken. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right. And on that note, let's wrap this bad boy up. So, gentlemen, thank you for everything. Hope you enjoyed today's video, today's stream, and of course, as always, see you guys next time. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure, and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and Patreons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.